Keep your head down!
D-Day, the 6th of June, 1944. The U.S. 3rd Army, 4th Armored Division, landed on Utah Beach at 6:30 a.m. under the heavy fire of German resistance.
Is it us?
And with the waves being choppier and higher than expected, forcing the Americans to depart the landing crafts in waist-high water, causing the Americans heavy casualties. By 10 a.m., the Americans had secured the beachhead.
Stay tight, keep your eyes open. How high are we? High enough to see the drop zone.
On that same day, U.S. paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division began landing on the Kootenai Peninsula, west of the Utah beachhead. The 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment were assigned to Drop Zone A, located north of Saint-Mère-Église, with orders to destroy German coastal artillery. Staff Sergeant Harrison Summers and his squad successfully touched down on the targeted landing zone and were hurrying to their rendezvous with their commander, Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Cassidy.
I need you to take a patrol of 15 men. Your assignment is to assault and secure the German fortified building complex, marked on your map as target WXYZ.
Yes, sir, Lieutenant Colonel. Unfortunately, 15 men are the most I can spare. You are to move out at once, Sergeant. Are there any questions, Sergeant?
No, sir. We'll get on our way, sir.
The sergeant and his patrol immediately encountered heavy German fire. Some of the patrol broke off, attempting to circle around the enemy. The fighting continued, from building to building. What they didn't know was that the intelligence report was wrong. Target, WXYZ, was in fact a company of the German 6th Parachute and Coastal Artillery Division. The Americans were stopped in their tracks by a wave of German machine gun fire. While the Americans held their ground, Sergeant Summers ordered them to follow him into the buildings. But some of them held back, leaving Sergeant Summers and Privates William Burt and John Kenyon to face the enemy alone. Sergeant Summers broke into the first room, spraying the room with machine gun fire, killing 4 German soldiers. They continued from room to room, building to building, killing every German they encountered. The Germans fought back. But Summers persisted. The assault lasted 5 hours. Together, they had secured 11 buildings. The Germans had had enough and ran to try to escape.
Lieutenant Colonel, sir. Sergeant Summers has been gone for hours, sir. May I have your permission to take a squad with me to find him, sir?
We don't have the manpower, son. Several of the 502 are still missing. I'm afraid we're stuck here for now. At least until the 502 regroups.
But, sir, that could be a while. The sergeant may be in need of help, sir.
Don't you think I know that, Private? We will remain here until either the sergeant returns or the reserves show up. Is that clear, Private?
Yes, sir. Very clear, Colonel, sir.
Unless I'm dreaming. Here comes Sergeant Summers. Believe it or not, with a ton of German prisoners.
So, I assume, Sergeant, that your mission was more than just successful. Exactly what happened out there, Sergeant? Well, intelligence report on target WXYZ was completely wrong, sir.
It turned out to be a company of German artillery, sir.
You mean to tell me you and 15 men took out the entire company?
You should have seen the sergeant, sir. It was like something out of a war picture, sir. He just kept mowing down Germans. He had to gotten at least 20 Germans, sir.
I see, Sergeant. Were there any casualties?
Just one that I know of, sir. A captain from the 502 who got separated from his unit and caught up with the three of us, offered to help. He was shot and killed by a sniper. He never made it.
What, didn't you retrieve his dog tag, Sergeant?
He was out in the open, sir. There was no way to reach him, sir. All right, Sergeant, I want you to sit down and write me out a complete report. Thank you, Colonel, sir!
All in all, Staff Sergeant Summers had killed more than 30 Germans, captured over 20, and forced over 70 German soldiers to flee and retreat. He was awarded a battlefield commission to second lieutenant, along with a Distinguished Service Medal. His actions that day allowed the 502 to eliminate the German coastal defenses. Then, after the war, he was honorably discharged as a first lieutenant. He then returned to his home in Rivesville, West Virginia, until his death on August 3, 1983. Naples, Italy, April 1945. U.S. 5th Army, 1st Battalion. Since June of 1944, the 370th Infantry Division had occupied the city. But the Allied advance was at a standstill. They were being prevented from moving forward into the Po Valley with the objective of capturing Spezia. The Germans had formed a defensive line, fortified mountain strongholds across the Gothic line. One stronghold in particular served as the line's anchor. Castle Aganolfi. With its strategic height, it commanded the view of the coastal highway, and with its formidable stone walls, made it almost impenetrable. Second Lieutenant Vernon Joseph Baker returned to the 370th Infantry after being wounded 2 months before.
If it isn't Lieutenant Baker, where have you been, sir? Is the arm healed up?
They kept me in the hospital until it healed completely. But I'm back now, boys.
So how did the nurses treat you, Lieutenant?
Well, they were pretty, but very snobby, if you get my drift.
Oh, I get you. It was just like that when I was in there a couple of weeks ago. I was happy to get out.
Captain Runyon been asking if we had seen you.
He looked kind of anxious.
You'd better hurry, Lieutenant.
Remember, stick together. We get through this one, we're one step closer to home.
All right. This is your assignment. You are now in command of the weapons platoon of C Company.
Thank you, sir. I feel honored, sir.
Enough of that. This is Castle Aginolfio. The castle is heavily fortified. You are to assault the castle from the south side. You are to take out the German 140th Infantry Division guarding the castle. Do you understand? The German-occupied mountain fortifications must be neutralized before any of our forces can move forward.
I understand completely, sir. It will be done, sir.
Following Captain Runyon's battle plan, Lieutenant Baker led his platoon of 25 men up the coastal highway and into the forest. They had just begun their advance when an opening in the forest canopy unveiled their target. There was Castle Aganolfi. What they didn't know was the Germans had seen them coming up the highway. and into the forest. From their elevated vantage point, the Germans watched. As they advanced, the artillery opened up. But the Germans knew where not to be. The artillery fire was of no help. Almost immediately, the Germans opened fire all around them. They began taking casualties. The Germans had them boxed in, continually spraying machine gun fire. Lieutenant Baker tried to continue to move his men forward. The heavy German fire began, ripping through Baker's platoon. They kept up, trying to advance, while bullets struck all around them.
Ziel 100 Meter weiter!
Then the German mortar fire began.
Anzubewegen weiter!
Goes to an unbearable pitch!
The Americans, finding themselves pinned in, managed to clear a path. The Americans fought with a fury, as more and more Americans were being picked off by German snipers. The Germans' machine gunners moved up to their forward trenches, opened fire, and tore through the Americans. Again and again, the Germans pelted the Americans with mortar fire. The Americans were now under heavier fire. The Germans continued to pick off more Americans. Fighting for their lives, Lieutenant Baker ordered his men to continue to push forward. But the German gunfire only increased. By now, almost half of Baker's platoon had fallen. Lieutenant Baker and what was left of the platoon got within 250 yards of the castle. When the German machine gun nests opened fire as the machine gunners zeroed in, the Americans were being torn to shreds. It was no use. Almost all of the platoon was gone. After 12 hours of fighting, Baker and his platoon managed to destroy 3 machine gun nests and 2 bunkers, but they were extremely outnumbered, with no real hope of reinforcements. Baker had no choice. He had to turn back. He led the few remaining members of the platoon, still dodging heavy gunfire, out through the forest. Only he and 6 others made it out alive. Tired, weak, and wounded, Baker and his 6 remaining men barely made it back.
Capturing that castle is of the highest priority, Lieutenant!
We weren't too far from the castle. When they began shooting down on us from the castle's tower, they must have seen us coming!
Sir, let me go back, sir. I know the terrain. I'm sure they spotted us on the county road. I know the terrain! Do you really think you can pull it off? You just got slaughtered. Go.
Lieutenant Baker led the 1st Battalion into the forest and awaited for the signal to begin the assault. the artillery batteries opened up, providing cover. They smashed down on the German defenses. Baker's intelligence report had given up their positions. Lieutenant Baker began the assault. He and his men rushed in at the enemy. The Germans responded, but they were at a strategic disadvantage, outflanked and undergunned. They fought on as best they could. They stared down on the mass of American soldiers coming up at them, but the angle was so steep, it was difficult to hit them. Lieutenant Baker let loose on a machine gun nest. The Americans continued the advance, pinning down the enemy. Again, Baker cleared out another nest. They came up against mortar fire, but Baker had seen the flash. He lobbed another grenade and ordered his men to duck for cover. With their forces dwindling, the Germans continued to fight back. They had overrun the Germans. Lieutenant Baker knew what laid ahead. The remaining Germans quickly scattered, disappearing into the forest.
Halt! Halt! We'll have to crawl from here. I see landmines ahead. Follow my lead.
The Germans had laid landmines across the fields ahead. Slowly and carefully, Lieutenant Baker led them through the minefields, one after the other, and on again. He chose this approach because he knew the minefields had been laid where the Germans couldn't see them. Once cleared, they broke out in a charge towards the forest. Hundreds of Americans raced to climb up the steep mountainside towards the castle. Out of the trees, Baker and the 1st Battalion rushed the unexpectedly quiet Castle Aginolfi.
Hey! No! Damn! Freeze! Don't move! You're all my prisoners!
The Germans surrendered without firing a shot. They had been hopelessly outnumbered. The mission had been accomplished. Castle Aginolfi had fallen, as well as the most important link of the German Gothic line. After that long day, the Americans had time to catch their breaths. They got to relax for a moment, away from the war. Lieutenant Baker had been wounded during the first assault the day before, but he had insisted on finishing what he started. For his actions that day, the Army awarded him the Distinguished Service Medal, the Silver Star, the Bronze Star with Oak Leaf Cluster, and the Purple Heart, also with Oak Leaf Cluster.
Now and forever, the truth will be known about these African Americans who gave so much that the rest of us might be free.
Inspiration to his men and exemplify the highest traditions of military service.
Then, on the 13th of January, 1997, President Bill Clinton presented him with the Congressional Medal of Honor. First Lieutenant Vernon Joseph Baker became that day the first African-American World War II veteran to receive the Medal of Honor. Supreme Allied Headquarters, London, England, the summer of 1942. American General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of Allied Forces in Europe, was reviewing the coming operation with American General George S. Patton, who would be leading the Western Task Force of some 35,000 American troops of the 3rd and 9th Infantry Divisions, along with the 2nd Armored Division, for the November invasion of North Africa. Codenamed Operation Torch.
George, you will be leading the Western Task Force. You are to land here.
November 8th, 1942. The German defensive fire prevented the American landing crafts from reaching the beachhead, forcing the American soldiers to depart in very high water.
No, Lieutenant. The raft stays here. You need to push on and find your units, sir. Look, Sergeant, there are Americans drowning out there! Are you blind, Sergeant? With all due respect, sir, I'm telling you, the raft stays here! Move on and find your units! Show your due respect, Sergeant! My sergeant and I are taking this raft! You are to get out of our way! Got that? You'll both get killed out there! I'd rather take a bullet standing here talking to some freaking blockhead sergeant!
Lieutenant Urban disregarded the sergeant's orders, and they headed for the water. Soldiers, weighted down by their packs and equipment, were struggling to stay afloat. Some began to drown. With bullets splashing all around them, they began to pull men out of the water. With as many as they could carry, they paddled frantically back to shore.
I'm trying! He's dead!
Again, they headed to shore, only to turn around and paddle back out, still under heavy fire, to pull more soldiers out of the water. Once it was all over, they had saved a dozen Americans from drowning. With the beachhead finally secured enough, the 2nd and 9th Infantry Divisions began to push in through the Kasbah Forest to capture the German-held WWII Airfield. The 2nd Armored Division began to arrive. Lieutenant Urban, leading Company D of the 60th Infantry, led his platoon to battle. The Germans put up a fierce defense. Their machine gun fire opened up all around, slowing down the American advance. The German onslaught increased in intensity, raining down heavy gunfire all around, tearing into the American forces again and again. The German machine gun fire continued relentlessly. The American advance began to break up. Under intense enemy fire, Lieutenant Urban rallied his platoon and began to lead a charge. Other members of the 9th Infantry took his lead and followed. He took a wound in the shoulder, but continued to lead the charge. The tide had turned for the Germans. The Americans were overrunning them. The Germans couldn't stop them. They turned and retreated. After 2 days of intense fighting, the Americans had captured the WWII Airfield. For his brave actions of those 2 days, Lieutenant Urban was awarded 2 Silver Stars as well as the Purple Heart. He would go on in 1943 to Sicily, preventing a costly battle, when he successfully spearheaded a surprise force of 4,000 men, causing the Germans to retreat from Troina, allowing the Americans to continue their advance into Sicily. Normandy, France, June 11, 1944. D-Day +6. Company F of the 60th Infantry Division were taking on enemy machine gun and tank fire. The American advance near Orléans, France, was struggling to move forward against the brutal enemy fire. Major Urban pushed ahead with his company as bullets ricocheted around them. He was hit in the shoulder. Urban continued to advance, charging forward, leading his men through the enemy gunfire. Taking the battle to the enemy, pushing him men on, attacking the German machine gun nests, one by one. Again, he was wounded, but he kept on fighting. While the Germans paid the price. Severely wounded, the American soldiers rushed to his aid. He refused to leave the battlefield. The German Panzer Lehr Division was unleashing heavy tank fire down on the Americans.
Hey, come on.
Major Urban saw a downed American bazooka unit. He picked up the bazooka and the surviving soldier. Together, they rushed forward. He set up in the open, giving him a better view. He aimed and fired. Picking out another tank, steadying his aim, he fired. The commander of a German panzer tank saw the flash of the bazooka, sighted in on it, and fired. Hearing the approaching shell, Major Urban was struck in the leg by shrapnel. He refused to leave the battlefield, still directing his men till they cleared the field of the Germans. Major Urban was awarded the Bronze Star, along with 3 Purple Hearts, for his heroism during the 3-day engagement.
Bring him in here! We need to get him on a table!
His wounds can't be handled here. We'll do the best we can before sending him on for surgery back in England.
While he was recovering from surgery in England, in July, he heard from fellow casualties of the 60th Infantry that they were taking heavy losses in the hedgerows of France. He asked and was granted permission to train 40 new recruits for combat, and instead of going home, he left with them for Normandy.
Excuse me, guys. Do any of you know where I can find the 1st Battalion?
Yeah, but it's away inland. You sure you're heading the right direction, Major, sir?
Listen, Private. I asked you a question. Which way to the 1st Battalion?
Pardon me, sir. Up in that direction. We'll go part way with you, sir.
Excellent, Private. Lead the way.
He found the company near St. Louis, France. The American breakout was about to begin, but the Germans of the 352nd Infantry Division were well prepared. The company was stalled by strong enemy opposition. The German machine gun and artillery fire had them pinned down. Again and again, the German artillery fired, sending shells crashing all around them. He caught up to them, he organized them, and ordered them to follow him towards the steady enemy machine gun fire. Major Urban led them between the hedgerows. They were coming up behind the Germans, but the Germans finally saw them as they cleared the hedgerows and quickly opened fire. Major Urban, realizing their situation, pulled them back into the hedgerows and came around their flank, throwing off the Germans. The Americans charged, tearing through the enemy, destroying German machine gun pits, and routing out the Germans. As they advanced, they came upon an American Sherman tank unit very much in trouble. gathered German infantry and artillery units had regrouped. They were moving forward, while the panzers blasted the American positions. Major Urban led them in to help rescue the fallen Americans. When Urban noticed a trapped American, struggling to free himself as the bullets struck all around them, he rushed up to the tank and pulled him free and dragged him out of the line of fire. The Germans kept coming, charging towards the Americans, while their Panzer tanks continued to fire on the Shermans.
Major! We need your help! You must come with us!
Lieutenant! What's going on?
There's a trapped soldier, wounded in a Sherman. The Germans are moving in on him. Hurry!
The lieutenant and the sergeant were shot and died instantly. While Urban ran for the tank, under heavy fire spraying all around him, he managed to crawl up the tank's hull, up to the turret. He then ordered the soldier back into the tank, to floor the gas pedal and to move out as fast as the tank could go. The tank's turret had been damaged and could not fire its shells. Manning only the machine gun, they barreled towards the Germans. The German panzers opened fire, but they were unable to zero in on the tank. Charging forward, his machine gun blazing, he raced towards the machine gun emplacements. Tearing into the Germans, he kept going, ripping through, raining havoc as he went, wiping out the Germans, trying to stop him. The Americans rallied around him, charging into the Germans. And after a fierce battle of hand-to-hand combat, the Germans were defeated. By August 2nd, the battle had heated back up. The German artillery laid into the Americans. Major Urban, once again, charged forward, under heavy enemy fire. He had been struck by a shell fragment, narrowly missing his heart. Once again, he refused to stop fighting. They lifted him back up to his feet. Ignoring the pain, he pressed on. Hobbling, he led them forward, while bullets rang out all around them. This time, the grenade exploded right behind him. He was seriously wounded by the shrapnel. For him, the battle ended. This time, there was no getting up.
Losing a lot of blood. Hurry. We got him! Bring him this way!
Meuse, Belgium, September 3rd, 1944. During the liberation of Belgium, the Allied advance needed to secure the Meuse River crossings, necessary for the push into Belgium. Near the town of Heer, Belgium, the Germans had dug in and were pounding the 2nd Battalion's advance. The battalion was encountering fierce enemy artillery, machine gun, and mortar fire from his command post above the battlefield. Recognizing the situation, he left his position and took charge of the 2nd Battalion. Major Urban reorganized and led the 60th Infantry Regiment in a frontal attack on the German machine gun and artillery positions. As they advanced, Major Urban was struck in the neck by machine gun fire. Unable to speak, he refused to leave the battlefield.
Here's the pen and paper you asked for.
After surgery in a field hospital, he spent a few weeks there, until he was sent back to a hospital in England to further recover. Although he could not speak above a faint whisper, he requested in writing for a combat assignment. But due to medical concerns, the commander of the 60th Infantry Regiment denied his request. He was allowed to return to his unit, who were in Elsenborn, Germany, where he was warmly received by his men. In October of 1946, he was medically retired as a lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army. From 1942 through 1944, Major Matt Urban had served during Operation Torch, Operation Husky, Operation Overlord, Operation Cobra, and the liberation of Belgium. During that period, he was awarded 7 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, along with 2 Silver Stars. He had been recommended for the Medal of Honor for his actions in France and Belgium, but the paperwork was lost in the military bureaucracy until it was discovered 36 years later.
Matt Urban is truly a hero of this great nation. Such men not only draw the full measure of capability from within themselves, but call forth the best from those around them. We need heroes not just for the victories that they make possible on the battlefield, but in later days to remind us of what America, at its best, can be. Now and in the future, the greatest nation on earth.
Then, on July 19, 1980, President Carter, in a White House ceremony, presented him with his well-deserved Congressional Medal of Honor. The Germans had called him the Ghost.
Sir, let me go back, sir. I know the terrain. I'm sure they spotted us on the county road. I know the terrain.